many lives that have been needlessly lost in this country today. And more specifically, we'd like to offer our condolences to the family of Anton Sterling and Philandro Castillo, as well as families that have lost loved ones to unjustified police shooting. The way we're going to begin this press conference today is Mr. Williams and Mr. Starks. Mr. Starks is going to talk about the facts of the lawsuit. Mr. Williams will also give you background of the lawsuit as well as the status of our investigations. And then we're going to have Ms. Brown and Ms. Rogers talk about Kane today and let you know more about him. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Good morning, everyone. Winston Churchill said, "Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it." Kane Rogers is unfortunately dead today because the Atlanta Police Department still has not learned from the tragic history of prior police shootings in this city, including the tragic shootings of Corey Ward and Katherine Johnston. Just like in those cases, Officer James Brown shot and killed Kane Rogers on June 22, 2016, without any legal justification and in direct violation of his constitutional rights. Our investigation into this tragic shooting and the death of Kane Rogers have revealed several important findings. First, let me be clear. Our investigation revealed that the illegal and excessive force used by Officer Burns in the murder of Kane Rogers was predictable. And it was predictable because in the short time that Officer Burns had been with the Atlanta Police Department during those 2 years, he had been investigated on at least 6 other occasions for physical, excessive use of force, including one instance where he tased a man who was receiving medical treatment from a paramedic. The Atlanta Police Department's own files prove that Officer Burns had a propensity and a history to use unreasonable force on the citizens of Atlanta. Simply put, the Atlanta Police Department's own files and our investigation have revealed that Officer Burns was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. And unfortunately for Kane Rogers, he exploded on June 22, 2016. We asked that people in this community that have had any problems or issues prior to with James Burns that you contact our office, the Cochran firm, at 404-222-9922. Because we know from the evidence in our investigation that Kane Rogers was not the first person whose constitutional rights was violated by this man. Now, the second and important findings we determined in this case is that the tragic death of Kane Rogers was preventable. And it was preventable if the Atlanta Police Department had taken discipline or actions to remove Officer Burns from the police force prior to the tragic shooting of Kane Rogers in June of 2016. Simply put, this should not have happened and it could have been avoided. Despite being fully aware of the numerous excessive physical force used by Officer Burns before this incident, the Atlanta Police Department and its supervisors, chief of police, continue to allow Officer Burns to violate people's civil rights without any repercussions or consequences. Our investigation has revealed that the Atlanta Police Department's persistent and widespread practice of allowing its officers to continually violate the citizens of Atlanta's constitutional rights, created a culture that permitted and encouraged Officer Burns' actions on June 22nd, 2016. Simply put, the Atlanta Police Department are directly responsible for the actions of Officer Burns on that evening. And although they terminated him as a result of this incident, it is our position on behalf of this family that they waited too late. They had plenty of notice and plenty of time to stop the murder of Kane Rogers before that night, and they did not do it. As such, Ms. Rogers and the Rogers family want to hold the Atlanta Police Department ultimately responsible for the actions of Officer Burns. They can terminate him from the force, but they cannot terminate their responsibility. And this lawsuit that we filed on behalf of the Rogers family is to hold them responsible for his actions and their failure to act prior to this night. I'm going to let Sam Starks talk about the lawsuit and the claims we filed.
Good morning. There's a movement in this country about equal rights and equal justice, in particular equal rights and equal justice for black men. The shooting death of Kane Rogers is the type of tragedy, it's a textbook example of what that movement is about. We filed a federal lawsuit, a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city of Atlanta, against Officer Burns, former Officer Burns, and also against the police chief of the city of Atlanta. This lawsuit has been filed on behalf of the mother of Kane Rogers, and it's a lawsuit that's in federal court seeking to hold the city and Officer Burns responsible for the death of Kane Rogers. This lawsuit is based on facts that show that Officer Burns shot and killed an innocent young man. It's based on facts that the city of Atlanta, through its police department, determined to be not justified based on the policies and procedures of the city of Atlanta Police Department. It's based on facts that the district attorney's office has determined support and justify charging Officer Burns with felony murder. These are the facts that this lawsuit is based on. By shooting and killing Kane Rogers, Officer Burns violated his oath as a police officer. He violated the policies of the Atlanta Police Department. He violated state and federal law and constitutional laws that protect all of us. And he violated the trust and the respect of the citizens of the city. And as Sean said, although the city has fired Officer Burns, we believe it's too little and it's too late. We think the city certainly did the right thing by quickly terminating Officer Burns. And we think that the district attorney's office has done the right thing by swiftly bringing charges against Officer Burns. But we urge the community to continue to peacefully protest against police violence and police brutality. This tragedy is an example of what that movement is about. So we've sued the city of Atlanta because, as Sean mentioned, the city over the years has engaged in a custom and a policy and a practice of encouraging and condoning and allowing its officers to engage in unnecessary force and in the use of deadly force without justification. We also believe that the city over the years has failed to adequately screen officers for hiring. They failed to adequately train officers. They failed to adequately supervise and discipline their officers. And so even though they have terminated this officer, we believe the city is ultimately responsible for the actions of Officer Burns. We believe that he is a product of the city of Atlanta's failure and the city of Atlanta's deliberate indifference to the rights of citizens. Thank you.
Now, what are we seeking and what are we asking on behalf of the Rogers family in this litigation? Simply, we want justice for Kane Rogers. We want justice for this community. We want to make sure that this does not happen to any other family in this city again. We also specifically want Mayor Reed and the members of the Atlanta City Council to take full responsibility for their officer. I don't want to hear we terminated him, so we no longer have responsibility. Across this nation, cities have taken responsibility for their officers' actions. And time again, in this great city, the home of the civil rights movement, this city continuously tell victims, like the Rogers family, that these cops are rogue cops and we're not paying or taking responsibility for their actions. That needs to stop, and that needs to stop in this case. And we want to make sure that the city, just because they terminated Officer Burns, don't terminate their responsibility. We also want real change. You know, we got policies changed and things changed in the Katherine Johnston case, but now we want to make sure that those changes are actually implemented. We need to see real action. We also want to make sure that there is no secrets to what happened. We want the video. There is a video of this tragic shooting. We want that released. We want to make sure that the public knows exactly what is happening in this city with our citizens and how this young man was murdered without justification, and to make sure that everybody knows this can't happen in this great state, in this great city, in this great nation. I'm going to allow Melva Rogers, the mother of Kane Rogers, as well as Crystal Brown, the aunt of Kane Rogers, to talk about him and what this has, how this has impacted this family.
Thank you, Sean. Just want to let everybody in the world know that Kane was my firstborn son. He was also the first grandchild of just three siblings, two siblings, me, myself, and my brother. He had a very big heart. While he was growing up, he was never in a fight. He's a good kid. And if you recall, kids grow up and they get into altercations. Kane never got into altercation with another person. He would give you the shirt off his back. He was into, as he grew older, he was into fashion. If you notice, I got on a blue jean jacket that he fashioned often. Just want to let you know that. He was into just design, marketing. This is what he loved. We all loved him dearly. Without my mom and my sister, my mom and my dad, I only have my sister here. And he's just a very loving kid, very good spirit. We were talking about last Christmas when he was trying to show my sister how to ride a hoverboard. He was definitely trying to teach her, and we're older, so we're very scared. But he was just a very compassionate child. And again, he was my oldest, and I loved him dearly. And the loss that I've suffered is past devastating. We're all seeking justice for Kane, but primary, um, my primary thoughts about justice for Kane is nothing in the world can bring my son back.
Want to say anything?
Definitely. My nephew was an innovator, wonderful kid, very well-rounded. It has really taken a toll on our family each day we go without Kane in our lives. I'm a support system to my sister. We miss Kane dearly. I don't think there's anybody in the world that could say they dislike Kane Rogers. He was all over, not only the city of Atlanta, he went to other states to pursue his fashion. So from a child, he was a leader, definitely a leader type individual. People looked up to him for so many different things. Even the smaller children in the family looked up to Kane for knowledge or information or direction. And to just have this tragedy happen to him is unspeakable. And that's for anybody that suffered this type of tragedy in their family. We miss Kane, we love him, and we just think about him every single day. His spirit is with us daily. And the world should know that when Kane left, they took something devastating from us. Absolutely, they did.
We'll take a few questions, if anyone have it.
Mrs. Rogers, what do you hope comes out of this for other young men who may have maybe in the wrong place at the wrong time, so like you're saying?
Justice for every individual, black, male, or female, just justice for that individual. We should not be allowed to be afraid to drive our cars, to walk in the streets, whatever city you live in. What we should be confident is in having security. And at this time, with the insecurity that's out there on the streets, I just want justice for every individual. Yes.
As we talk about this, Rogers, this is the civil aspect of it and holding the police department, city accountable for this. Mr. Burns himself, the criminal side of this, what do you want to see in that aspect towards him?
Just justice on the criminal side and justice as well as on the civil side.
And we want to make sure that we have a meeting scheduled with District Attorney Paul Howard with the family. We're going to sit in that meeting and let it be known that we want to make sure that the Fulton County District Attorney's Office prosecute this fully from the criminal perspective. We understand that there is a bond that is being attempted. This family does not believe that Officer Burns should get a bond. They've murdered their child. They do not have Kane here, and they believe that he should stay in jail until he has an opportunity to deal with a jury of his peers regarding this issue. And so, obviously, that is not in control of the family, but they want everybody to know they don't support him getting a bond in this case.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the 6 different investigations into Mr. Burns' police work? Because we had been only told about one, and that would be the tasing incident.
Well, I can't tell you specifically everything about it because I haven't gotten his whole complete file. One of the things we will be doing in this litigation is aggressively pursuing and going through every aspect of those incidents by not only questioning and interviewing those individuals involved, but going through in detail the Atlanta Police Department files, emails, memos on what they did or did not do regarding actions taken regarding those incidents. I do know that we have what we were able to obtain. We got at least 6 incidents. Now, I've been doing this long enough to know that if that's what's written, there's a lot more out there that's unwritten. And that is a lot of incidents for an officer that's been on the force for that limited period of time.
So you believe he was unfit from the beginning?
Well, I don't, Well, I can tell you this, from the beginning of his history with the City of Atlanta Police Department, he's clearly shown a propensity from within a few months of him getting the job that he will use force, physical and excessive, for the little minor things that an officer shouldn't do. And so whether he was fit from the beginning, I still need to investigate what they knew or didn't know at the time he was hired. We will do that in this litigation. But what I have in front of me thus far in our investigation shows that at some point, very clearly, within a few months of him being at the Atlanta Police Department, they knew or should have known that he had a propensity to violate people's civil rights. And at nothing that we have obtained or investigated shows that they took any actions to either train him, suspend him, discipline him for any of these incidents.
And the information we're speaking about, it's available to the public. It's information that we've gotten from the City of Atlanta Police Department. So most police departments in this country, they monitor and document all instances when their officers use force. And so what we have found from Officer Burns's file is that there are 6 different incidents where he has been engaged in the use of force. Those incidents, at least in theory, are supposed to be monitored by the police department so that if they determine that these incidents are not justified, or if they show a propensity to use excessive force, then the police department is supposed to discipline or train or counsel and deal with that officer. So what we're seeing so far is an indication that up until this incident, there was never any previous discipline, reprimand, retraining, or any counseling. And so our position, based on what we've seen, is that this could have been avoided because this officer early on has shown signs of having a propensity to use unnecessary and deadly force.
Do you see any disciplinary action in this file at all?
What we have so far shows the documentation of these use of force incidents. It does not show any disciplinary action other than what grows out of the shooting death of Kane.
What does taking responsibility look like? You talked about wanting the city council and the mayor to take responsibility. What does that look like? And conversely, and on the other hand, what does the change that you're asking for look like? Can you answer those two for me?
Yeah, taking responsibility is not just terminating the officer after this happened and don't want to take the consequences that come from it, from his actions before this happened and at the time it happened. We handle at the Cochran firm cases throughout this nation that deal with police shootings and use of excessive force. And the City of Atlanta is one of the few cities that have a policy and practice of consistently, when they have an officer that has clearly violated a citizen's constitutional rights, they then isolate themselves from that officer and claim that it's the officer's responsibility to take responsibility for this incident and not the city. And this got to stop. This doesn't happen in other cities, but in matter of fact, it doesn't happen in other cities in this state. But the City of Atlanta, for whatever reason, has that policy and practice through their legal department and their mayor and the city council. And we're saying it has to stop regarding that. And the other aspect of taking responsibility is we're tired of the lip service. We're tired of saying we're terminating, we're sorry, these policies were violated. And this continuously happens over and over again. So taking responsibility, I have an 8-year-old. He does something wrong, I correct him, I correct the situation, make sure he understands it's wrong, and we create a situation and a culture that it doesn't happen again. That's what the city needs to do with their officers. If you're gonna put these officers on the street for the protection of these citizens, and when they show continuously that they're not following the rules, you have to take action. And that's what we mean.
Mrs. Rogers, could you just tell a little bit more about Kane's background, where he went to high school? I understand he had just started a new job working in a warehouse. Where did he go to school and what was the name of the warehouse?
He attended, okay. Kane attended Farrell High School in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's actually BM Farrell High School. He was getting ready to work. I got a call the next day from his staffing agency for he had actually went to orientation the day before, which would have been the 21st. So he was already in orientation to go on a job with the warehouse. That's the type of work he did. Of course he rode the hoverboard, I mentioned that. So with the new warehouses, they're using those efficiently. That's the type of work he was going to.
Any other questions?
Have you all been pleased with Paul Howard's response, or did you not meet with him yesterday? You still have to meet with him?
Yeah, unfortunately, the meeting got canceled with Mr. Howard. I think his schedule changed. We are scheduled to meet with him on Monday. And to answer your first question is, the family is pleased that murder charges have been brought against Officer Burns. And so for that, we are grateful for the district attorney's office doing their investigation and taking what we believe is justified and legitimate action against this officer.
You were talking about the video. We've also asked for the video and not gotten the video, and now there is some talk that there might even be a request for a gag order in the case, in the criminal case, meaning that even more information would be kept from the public and from the media. What do you think about that?
Well, we believe that the public would be entitled to all of the information relevant to this incident, just pursuant to the Georgia Open Records Act, which is how we've gotten the information we have and how I think you guys get information that you get. And so ultimately, we're going to pursue the legal options that we think we have to get that information just through the open records laws. But we now have a lawsuit that we think gives us an additional means of getting whatever evidence or information is available relevant to the case. And hopefully through Mr. Howard's office, they will be forthcoming, because one of the problems with cases like this is that information is often not very forthcoming. And so what we see from the district attorney's office so far is a very positive sign. It's what people have been asking for and what people have been hoping for. And so the swiftness by which he has moved to charge this officer, even though there's still a grand jury process that has to play out, we're encouraged by that. But we'll be meeting with him next week, and hopefully we will get, for ourselves and for the public, all of the information that's available, in that there is no investigation now that anyone could argue would be hampered or impeded by releasing this information to the public. Normally, we're waiting months for the investigation to conclude or for decisions to be made about whether someone's going to be charged. In this case, that's all been done. So even though there may still be some investigations, for all practical purposes, the case has been made, and so we're hoping to get all of that information.
And this is a great opportunity for this city, the home of the civil rights movement, home of Martin Luther King Jr., to take the lead on this discussion in this nation. The reason why those other cases have gotten attention is because we have a video. People see exactly what has happened. This man was shot, this young man was shot without justification back in June. No one across this nation is talking about it because we haven't seen the video. That is disturbing. We had people protesting right here in the streets of Atlanta. We got some of the biggest crowds across this nation. And right here, we had a young man that was killed. We're protesting about stuff in Louisiana, which we should be, and in Minnesota, which we should be. But we have this problem in our own city. If the city of Atlanta want to take the leadership that they claim to be regarding being the city that is too busy to hate, the city that welcomes everybody, release that video so we can see. Take responsibility for your officer. Don't just terminate him one day and not take responsibility every other day he was working for you. So we ask the public, we ask people out there, and Sam is right. We want peaceful protest. We want peaceful attention to this issue because it's important. I'm tired of doing these press conferences, talking about another young person, black, white, or otherwise, being killed by an officer who has the duty to protect them. So the way you bring attention to things like this is you put it out in the public. You let everybody know. That's when change happens. That's what happened on that bridge in Alabama. When people saw it, people took action. We need to see that video. They deserve to see the video, and they deserve to let everybody know that their son did nothing wrong that day to be killed. So we ask that.
Mr. Rogers, if I may ask you, since he's brought this up about the video, we've had the protest here, how are you feeling about the fact your son's death, murder, hasn't received the same attention as some of the others? How do you feel about this situation?
Right now, I'm just confident that slow walking it is the best way. It's going to get exposed. The public and the citizens across the United States will know about it. The timing is coming in just in time. So right now, I'm confident.
Thank you for your time and for being here. If anybody wants to get a copy of the open records information we received, please let us know, send us an email, and we will provide that to you.